Hey friends, it's Wayne Polson and I'm coming to you from the 13-acre house adjacent to our SM Heartland property. And I wanted to talk to you or continue along the lines of converting a GE gas range and oven from natural gas to liquid propane. Last week I went through a video on how to do that. If you didn't see that video, there's a link right there. Please check it out. And today what I want to do is continue by letting you know what needs to be done after you make that conversion, after you change those orifices. You have to make a couple of checks to make sure that your range is set to run efficiently and properly and safely. So we're going to do those checks today. Thank you, Angie K, for your comment on, Angie mentioned in last week's video that her son had made the conversion on her gas range, and she wondered why some of the burners didn't quite operate correctly, like maybe not enough flame or too much flame. I'm not exactly sure what the situation was there, Angie, but this video will help in that. But I think the problem that you described is that your son did not know that each size burner has a specific sized orifice to go with it, and you can't mix those up. If you do, you're going to get high flames out of the small ones and low flames out of the big ones. So make sure you get that correct before you move on to this procedure. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so the first step in this process is to remove the grates, get those out of the way so that you can see these flames. And you're going to turn each burner on and set each burner to medium flame. So I'm going to start with the front right burner. I'm going to set that to low. That's the first step. The next thing I'm going to do is pull the control knob off. And you can see the flame is pretty low there. Now, this shaft that the control knob is attached to is hollow, and in the back of that shaft there's a set screw. And you need a screwdriver like this. It's a flat blade screwdriver that has a very narrow head on it. In this case, I actually had to file off the shoulders of that head to get this to fit in there and turn properly. So you get this in the hole until you find the set screw. And you notice as I adjust this, I can make it go up or down. If it's too low, like this, for instance, and I open the oven door, you see the irregularity in the flame. And sometimes if it's really low, that flame will go out and stay out, and that's a dangerous situation. So what we want to do is hold the shaft in position, put the screwdriver in, find that set screw, and then turn it up until the flame is mostly stable whenever you open the oven door like that. That is your minimum low flame setting. Now there's a misconception that that control is used to adjust the high flame setting. Don't do it. Don't judge the flame by how hot it is. You need to be careful on the low end. So make sure that you're adjusting this for the low setting and not the high setting. If you're having problems getting high heat out of the burner, then you have something else going on, some other kind of problem, maybe a problem with the orifice itself or somewhere along those lines. That's a different issue altogether. So now what you do is you put this back on. Set this one for medium. And then you go back to the next one, and I'm going to do the rear right. And I'll continue this process until all 5 of these burners have their minimum low settings set properly. Okay, I'm not going to go through all of these here on the video. All right, friends, so that is how we set the minimum low flame for each of the 5 burners on the stovetop. Now what we have to do is we got to check the oven broiler fuel and air mixture. And you need to do this with the oven totally intact, just as it would be if you were baking in it. So you have to have the floor of the oven in place. You have to have the front door closed. All the adjustments and observations are made with the broiler door open on the bottom. Now, let me describe a little bit about what's going on in there. From the orifice that feeds the oven broiler burner, Right above that orifice is a shutter that controls how much air enters the mix. If you don't have enough air entering the fuel mixture, you will get a weak flame. It'll be mostly yellow, a low temperature flame. Now it's normal for LP gas, even at proper settings, to have yellow tips, but that's just the tips, and that's LP gas. It's normal to see that with LP gas, but you don't want mainly all yellow, if you know what I'm saying. So if the shutter is too far open, meaning there's too much air getting into the fuel mix, what you'll have is the flames will actually sort of dance away from the burning element, if you know what I'm saying. They dance. They actually like leave. They go in and out. The flames will actually go out and come back in, and it's just kind of a weird thing. I call it the dancing flame. So so what we're going to do is when you get down in there, oh, and by the way, it's important that you make these adjustments with the oven burner totally warmed up. So you need to let this thing heat up for a couple of minutes. 2 minutes probably is enough before you make any observations or any adjustments. So I'm going to jump into this after the 2-minute warm up so that we don't have to wait for 2 minutes on camera. And we'll take a look at what's going on down there. So let's get into it. Oh, by the way, one more thing. That also means that the process will be a little bit slower because once you determine what needs to happen, the shutter might be too hot to handle, so you may have to wait a few minutes with the oven turned off. Make your adjustment, turn the oven back on, and so forth. So let's get into it right now. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the oven broiler burner above. The orange that you see is the reflection of the igniter. You can see the igniter glowing there in the back. I want you to notice though that the flames on here are actually jumping off of the burner. You see that? And way in the back, on the back wall at the end of the burner tube, you can see the shutter. The shutter looks like it's almost wide open, and that's the problem here. We're getting too much air mixture in there. So I'm going to go ahead and shut this off. I'm going to close that down a little bit, and we're going to see if we can tame down that dancing flame that we're seeing there. All right, so now that this has cooled, I'm going to get in here and I'm going to loosen this lock screw right here. This is what holds the shutter in position. I'm kind of doing this with just one hand from a distance so that you can see this a little bit better. Okay, that's loose. Okay, so now with a flat blade screwdriver, I'll go over here to the back side of this shutter and pick up the edge of it and sort of push it back because it's hard to move sometimes. And every now and then I notice you have to sort of go back and forth. Work the top here by grabbing that little hole and sliding it and then pushing it on the back. Now you notice I've moved it quite a bit here. I'm going to go ahead and try it at this setting, and I want to make sure that my flames have quit jumping. So let me tighten this lock screw down. There's still a big opening here for air to come in. And if I've gone too far, we'll just back it back. Now the way that we'll know if I've gone too far is if we start to see yellow tips on the flames. All right, let's start it up and let's see what happens. Okay, so there it is, folks. You can notice the dancing flame has stopped. I've got an occasional yellow flame shooting out there. I'm not too worried about that. Otherwise, the flames are predominantly blue. And that's what I'm looking for right there. So I'm going to leave it at that point and call it a good adjustment. So folks, that's it for another video here from SM Heartland and now the 13-acre house. We went over how to adjust the upper burner, low flame limit, and the oven broiler air gas mixture. We took care of all of that here in this video. Folks, thank you for subscribing to my channel. I want to thank you for being there with me from the beginning. You know, the core of you who are there know who I'm talking about. Every day I'm seeing new subscribers, and I don't know where you're coming from, but I hope you enjoy the content. I hope that's why you're subscribing. I don't see very many unkind comments, let me put it this way. Folks, you guys are gracious people. Thank you for subscribing to this channel. Please hit the like button. Most of all, leave a comment for me that I could engage with you a little bit and find out a little bit more about you. Thank you again so much. I'll see you in the next video. All right, friends, well, that's how we set the minimum low flame setting for the 5 burners on the stove top, and that is freaking hot. That was dumb. When you make the conversion from natural gas to liquid propane, you're changing the amount of gas that is presented to these burners. Now, each one of these and liquid propane kostnala shinimaka natural gas. Solakine moko nieto statu kramati kada o oshinga flamethrower do kostala mashi mosta kima likolada with a kista makara screwdriver. Tokrama tu supukuni yaklama shinakiele o kananana shinaki makama burnt my finger. Sola tostama kala kishine moko my hair goes in flames. Sodeta koshinekie la mokime ese. All right, let's try this again.